Nurse.org and Major League Sports teams are honoring nurses with discounted game tickets and once-in-a-lifetime experiences. From throwing the first pitch to riding the Zamboni to on-court recognition, join the fun. Visit nurse.org/nurse night to find a nurse appreciation event near you and grab your discounted tickets today. You're listening to Nurse Converse, presented by Nurse.org, a collaborative podcast amplifying diverse nurse voices. Get ready for a dose of inspiration, a sprinkle of education, and a whole lot of community.
So, welcome to the Nurse Converse podcast. Today we have a very exciting and near and dear to my heart episode where it will be myself, Ama Mathewos, along with three other nurses who will be talking about what it's like to be African American and Black as a nurse. And so let's dive right on in. I want to do introductions. So how is everyone doing today?
Good.
Pretty good.
All right. So just for our listeners, if you don't mind sharing, and we can start with Casey, ladies first. You can say your name, your role, where you live, and one word that you would describe what it's like to be a Black nurse in America.
Hey, I'm Casey, also known as Critical Care Casey. I've been a nurse for 10 years, working in everything critical care. And currently I'm in nurse anesthesia school. I'm a first year and relocated from the beautiful state of Maryland to Chicago, Illinois. So that's where I live now. If I had to describe what being Black in nursing would be resilient.
Yes, thank you for that. Everett?
Okay. All right. Officially, I am Dr. Everett Moss. I am a certified registered nurse anesthetist, and I have been in nursing for 10 years now, and I've been in healthcare for 21 years. I currently live in South Carolina, though I'm bred, born, and fed, ATL, Georgia. And one word that describes the experience as a Black nurse in America: needed. Very much so needed.
I love it. Y'all got me rethinking my word now. Thank you for that. Travius?
I'm Travius Keandric out of Marion, Alabama, where Coretta Scott King from, Martin Luther King wife. So shout out to Marion. Currently living in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been a nurse for 8 years. Done med-surg, ICU, psych, PACU, a little bit of everything. And my one word would be unapologetic.
Well, I'm Ama Mathewos. I am originally from Orlando, Florida, but I have been working as a nurse right after grad school for almost 20, nursing school for almost 20 years in New York City. I've done med-surg, I've done oncology, and I've done inpatient, outpatient, night shift, day shift, like all the things. But what I've consistently done now over my 20 years is be a nurse leader. And that kind of specialty of work is very near and dear to my heart, as I feel like it touches everything and creates space for healthy spaces for nurses. And so one word that I would use to describe being a Black nurse in America would be compassionate. Just, you have to have deep compassion, because people will test your compassion. So truly compassionate nurses. So thank you all for that. So let's just dive right on in. Very kind of, easy first question around why'd you become a nurse? Anybody could take it.
Well, I personally became a nurse because my great-grandmother, she had 19 kids. And from like my 7th to 12th grade year of high school, 2 or 3 of them had cancer, and I would be bedside with them before I actually got on the actual bedside. So I was nursing before I became a nurse, and I guess it just carried over. And I come from a city where we don't have a hospital. There's no healthcare system. And I dream of one day bringing it to my hometown.
So my transition, I didn't know about nursing growing up. I mean, I knew what nurses were, but no one in my family. My father was a firefighter, so that's what kind of got me into firefighting and EMS. And after getting into EMS, I learned about nursing. Once I started working around the hospitals, I found out about anesthesia and decided that I wanted to pursue becoming a CRNA. It just took a very scenic route to get here. But that was my drive, is to expand my ability and opportunities within healthcare.
I became a nurse because nursing kind of runs in my family. So, all the way back, never thought that I would experience a global pandemic, but nurses in my family have been there from 1918 through tuberculosis and now through COVID. So, it kind of was like I knew I wanted to do something in healthcare. Like, always, my grandma was a nurse, taught me all the things. And then, just the rush of, like, being an ER nurse and ICU nurse is why I got into those, but just the longer I was in nursing, the longer I realized that while we're in these critical care areas, like, when you look around, you're not really represented, like, you don't represent the patient population is not represented, not necessarily by the nurses. So, it kinda kept me, like, involved and wanting to bring others in.
Oh my God, such beautiful answers. The other question I had related to that was, did you get to see Black nurses growing up, or who inspired you? And just even in answering why you became a nurse, that kind of showed up in some of those answers, especially you, Casey, saying you grew up in a family of nurses. Were there, Travius, like, were there nurses caring for your family, Black nurses caring for your family members?
Um, so my mom became a nurse in my late teens. Yeah. So I saw it from her, but no, the ladies that were coming, no, they weren't Black. They were coming by the house. Becoming a nurse where I'm from is like, because it's a poverty-stricken city. Like a lot of people just, to make that even like the amount of money as a nurse for a lot of people is like life changing. So not many people became nurses where I'm from. To sum it up,
Yeah, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. But your mama did.
my mama did.
Shout out to her for sure. As we talk about how we either have seen them growing as we're growing up, or even in school or at work, and how that inspired us, what are other ways, if we can all share a moment where race kind of shaped our experience at work?
I kind of have, like, my historical example of working in Baltimore City in Maryland and working in places where I was the only Black ICU nurse, especially being in a population where, like, a lot of the patient population was Black or African American or some mix of Black and something else, and just seeing the way that they were treated and how things like people being loud or lots of people being present in the room was seen as, like, a different way because they were Black. Also being so many times people asking if I was EVS or, like, support staff, like, other support staff not being able to, like, comprehend that I was the nurse taking care of them. How because I was Black, how could I be a nurse taking care of them? And I just think that that was, like, interesting, especially in such a where, like, the area is predominantly Black, but where patients still, like, ask you if you're EVS or, like, assume that you couldn't be the nurse taking care of them, which was really interesting to me. And even, like, my dad had surgery when I was thinking about CRNA school, and up until that point, I had never seen, like, a Black CRNA, like, never seen it. My mom was like it made her like, she's a worrywart, and she was like, "I after she has talked to me, I feel so calm. He's gonna be taken care of." And, like, I when I saw that, I was like, "That's it. That's what I wanna do." Like, this woman, just by being authentically her, like, I've never even seen a Black CRNA. My dad literally was like, "I've never seen" my mom and my dad had surgery, like, a couple times each, and they were like, "I've never even, like, met anybody that's Black that does this," and that made me feel so much better, like, seeing myself represented. So, I think, like, those, like, experiences, I didn't realize at the time, like, that I was, like, experiencing them until I kinda stepped back and realized that, like, I wasn't the only person that was experiencing the same things in, like, different areas that I worked in.
So, I'd say that my word that I use for experiences of Black nursing in America is needed, because unlike a lot of people's story, I don't have a lot of negatives that directly impacted me as an individual, right? Like, I've never been asked if I was EVS. I've typically gotten saying, "Hey, are you my doctor?" You know what I mean?
Doctor. Mhm.
Or something along those lines, right? But I also am very self-aware and environmentally aware. I stand 6'3", 200 some odd pounds. So, usually that changes a person's perception sometimes, right? So where the experience comes in is when I've moved into these spaces from working EMS, from working in the ER, ICU, pediatric environment, is how my patients respond to me as opposed to responding to someone else, right? And that's when the connection is made to me, because I don't want to say ignorant to it. I may be a little bit naive to it because it hasn't been my personal experience. But when I have a patient where the physician is explaining something and he's explaining it in a way that they don't really comprehend, and then I have that opportunity to talk to them in a way that they can understand what's happening. And they're like, oh man, thank you for that. Because I didn't know what he was talking about, but they were too either embarrassed, ashamed, or scared to ask for clarification. When I've worked in pediatric environments and, you got a small child that maybe have not been around any other races and is scared to interact with all of the other providers. And then I pick her up and she lays her head on my chest and it's calm. Like, it just does something to my my soul. And that's why I say needed, because a lot of people who don't or haven't been negatively been impacted by limited representation, they don't understand why it's important. But when you get in these environments and you have an 80-something-year-old lady looking at everybody else in the room and she looks at you and say, baby, please keep me safe. Those are the experiences that speak to me and why I can say we're needed, because there's a population of people who just simply feel a little bit more comfortable, have a little bit more trust and belief in healthcare because of seeing individuals who resemble them.
Man, I mean, that just so many patients' face like just popped up when you said that, because it could be something of like, give me some real food in here too. Please keep me safe, or what does all this mean? And so, I just got chills. And so, yeah, very much needed.
And the sigh
Travis,
of
what you got?
relief.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say the sigh of relief people see you.
My experience has kind of been location based. Like in Alabama, my experience as a Black nurse was completely different than what it currently is in Atlanta.
Yeah,
In Atlanta,
ATL
yeah,
doesn't compare. Like,
nah,
in the
and that,
city,
and
it's
that,
a different environment.
it's a different world. I feel so welcome. I feel accepted. I feel like I'm at home. When I came to Atlanta, I never saw so many CRNAs, Black doctors, Black dentists, Black everything. It was crazy. But back
Blackity,
home,
blackity,
like,
blackity,
yeah.
black. Atlanta
But
will do that to you.
but in Alabama, I had a ton. It started out rough for me, y'all. My first job, I dealt with a lot of racism, like racism, from the patients to the management to like everything, to the board, everything. So yeah, it's like night and day when it comes to location. That's my experience.
How did you navigate? Sounds like you didn't even have microaggressions, but these macroaggressions or straight up biases or racism. How did you navigate that in Alabama?
Ooh, I had to be on my P's and Q's. Like I was forced to outperform myself just to be safe. Like, it's crazy. It's like I doubled down on myself. I put more pressure on myself just to satisfy them. But I knew it was all temporary. So keeping that in mind, knowing, okay, Travius, you won't be here forever. I had bigger dreams, bigger goals always. Always was to move, but I always wanted to be strategic, and I wanted to gain my experience the right way. I didn't want to start off with, oh, he's already quitting jobs, doing this and that. Like, let me stick it through, but let me be smart and me calculate my steps and make sure I'm documenting each and everything, all instances. It's like I became familiar with the court and the law of nursing during my first job immediately. I ain't have a chance to not be able to experience like what you say, Everett. You didn't experience any negative connotations really. I started off negative, so that had me on edge my entire nursing career, even today. Shoot.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, I'm on pins and needles, but I'm also unapologetic though. So it's like, yeah, they know what's up.
I want to hold space because I know for our listeners, there is, whether it's small or large, every day or once a year, that this is a very common experience where someone's having to navigate, show up differently, having to perform, as you said, triple document, overbe calculated. That put so much stress on your mind, your body, you know what I mean? And so my heart just
any text messages I get from the hospital, any phone calls, like I'm getting immediate anxiety. Like, why should I be feeling that way when it comes to my job?
Hey nurses, looking for exclusive discounts? Nurse.org has you covered with deals on everything. Save big on the essentials you need to excel in your career. Don't miss out. Visit nurse.org/discounts for the latest discounts made just for you.
One of the questions I was going to say, what is like code switching or, having to be twice as good in the work that you either have done or are currently doing? Like, what does that look like for you? I don't know. Have you found a lane or organization where you don't feel like you even have to do that?
So I will say, after like becoming the alphabet soup queen, everything became a little bit easier. If people are listening, you're like, what is that? Like my anesthesia big bro, Everett, super certified and have like all these nursing certifications. And while I did it for personal great gain, I also did it because a lot of my managers that I had had in the past kind of were like, "Oh, we're not paying for you to do certification because we don't think you'll pass." And, like, kind of having doors, like, slammed in my face and not having people having less experience getting into, like, situations and places, and I was like, "Okay, if I have to be 5 times better than you, then I'm gonna get certified 5 times better than the next person, 8 times better." And I was like, it sucks because people will get into positions and that they're, like, less qualified than you, but it means being like, I almost think that sometimes being Black in healthcare means you inherently have to be 8 times better than somebody else to even be, like, considered equal to them on a playing field. And even in, like, leadership, like, being passed over for opportunities when I was a nurse leader, and looking at people going like, "I'm way more experienced than you, and I have way more determination, grit, and, like, just raw nursing experience, but I know that you got this because you're friends with somebody or because we differ, like, color-wise." So being able to, like, rationalize that, but understand that, like, and my mom always said, like, "It's not fair that this is how it is for you, but it means that you have to be better. Like, you have to be better, so be better." And I think that that's, like, why I picked the word resilient is, like, you have to be fine with, like, you're gonna get kicked once or twice, and that's not the way it should be, and I work every day that it's not this way, but be resilient because you getting up and, like, punching back lovingly, respectfully, professionally is how you end up beating all the people who wanna bully you out of this career before you even start.
Geez, a couple things came up for me with that. One, when you just talked about applying for positions or not getting, you just took me back to, I guess, my historical or first, like, I would get on an everyday basis, like when I was clinical bedside, after giving care, great care, interacting, meds, dressing changes. I was on the surgical, all of that. And I would hear the patient be like, well, I'm not sure who my nurse was. And I'm like, well, who did you think I was these past 12 hours? And they would be like, the CNA. Sometimes they say, oh, but you're so young. And when I became a leader, I often, people were like, oh, are you the case manager? Are you the social worker? And I'm like, I've been here before, nurse manager. But yeah, that's tiring and it's exhausting. And the other big story that I think where race really played a part was me and a colleague applied to be in the PACU, going from med-surg to the PACU. I told her about the position. She was white and I am Black, right? Or she is. And she used to refer to her, we started on the same day. It was like literally one of, the Harvard kind of resume in real life type of thing. I applied first. She also applied. They have multiple positions, y'all, by the way. We were hired on the same day for this med-surg unit. So we literally are like the same person outside of who we are individually, right? And she would refer to herself as, she was like, you're a RN and I'm a BN. And it was like a little joke between us. She never felt really confident. She couldn't do like a manual blood pressure and stuff like that. So self-proclaimed, right? So we both interview. I actually was able to interview in professional attire. She came in from her night shift and interviewed in scrubs. She got the job. I did not. And she was like, I can't believe why. Why? Like, there's multiple positions. How did I get it over you? And, I just walked away from that like, wow. So I asked, what kind of feedback would you have? What do I need? She was like, oh, we're looking for nurses with more clinical experience. I mean, all these things that for one. And it was just really eye opening to me. Like, even when you are twice as good, or put your best foot forward. And so the word resilient of just finding a place where you'll thrive and grow, and not really getting caught up on people's like ignorance or bias to really define who you are. And so sometimes I think it could show up when you get real motivated and get the alphabet soup, or maybe you just are like, what, this organization in this town, and that, sometimes that maybe comes with privilege if some places don't have many options. But, also we don't have to, I think, and nowadays I like to think that everyone doesn't have to also stick around in an organization where that type of stuff is kind of promoted, encouraged, or is throughout.
And I would also say your national nursing organization, for whatever specialty you're in, depending on specialty, but usually there's avenues, like, if you are pretty much every specialty, every color under the rainbow, there's, like, an organization for you. So if you're not comfortable, like, I know, like, for CRNAs, there's diversity in nurse anesthesia, there's ACN, ANA, and NBNA, and NHA. I cannot remember the acronym for the Hispanic Nurses Association. I'm sorry. I love you, and I love and respect all of you. But basically, like, there's an organization for you nationally if you're not getting that where you are and you don't have the means to, like, move out of the environment. So, like, don't ever feel like you're alone is, like, maybe like a midsection, like, thing I just want to tell people that are listening. Like, this is supposed to be like, we're telling you our stories, but we're also like, there's places that support you too. So if you're listening to this, you're like, this is me. This is my unit. There are places where you can feel comfortable. And I know, especially like for me, living in the suburbs and working in a city, were like two different complete universes for me. And I found support in other organizations.
Yeah, and I wanted to speak on that slightly briefly. Some of my best and biggest blessings have came in the form of no, or not right now. So while I understand completely there are opportunities that you have been passed over or feel as if you've been passed over, that you were more qualified than another, be it race, gender, age, whatever. Don't forget that sometimes no was your answer, and it was the right answer in that moment and space of your life. And Travius mentioned earlier about that stress of the job calling and going to work. All of us have to stop sometimes adding that extra stress, because then that weighs you down. You can't run the race if you have too much weight on you. So when it comes to trying to be better and the best, try not to think about the word better, and just be your best. Do what you can do, because a whole lot of looking left and right is going to give you that imposter syndrome and that bias, because they over there doing that and I'm right here. So there's just something else. I just don't want people to life heavy without adding to your plate. You know what I'm saying? So be your best.
And I should add, so I love that you said that. So that no absolutely got me a really great yes. I went on to, it moved me to oncology, which that specialty I love. I got a day shift position, and that was night shift position. I wanted to actually, a priority was to get off night shift at the time. And the manager that hired me was a Jamaican woman. And I learned so much from her, both clinically, as a leader, and who came like, I'm like, I call her my mom. And this is, she came to my wedding, and she's still very much a part of my life. And so you're absolutely right and that's where I kind of, and I love that you expanded on that. What meant where, like, sometimes things are out of your control, and accept that and just find and keep going. And yeah, that no just opened up way more opportunities and made me a happier, healthier nurse. Travis, what were you going to add?
Yeah, code switching to me is like when you have to put on this face for certain people that you really don't put on with everyone else. It's like Everett telling me to do something and I do it a certain way, but Evan come behind Everett and I do it like the best way I could really could have did it. But with Everett, it's like I'm kind of because you're my brother, right? But for other people, you go up and beyond. That's code switching to me.
You know, I'm glad you described it the way, and I'm actually glad we're talking about code switching, because I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day about code switching, and basically our interpretation was talking differently or acting differently in front of a different nationality, race, or whatever, or even performing differently. And I totally agree that if you are performing differently for others as opposed to others, whichever way you want to flip it, that's when it becomes somewhat problematic. But the original sense of code switching, or definition, I mean, it's not really we paint it as a bad thing most of the time, but I'm not going to talk to adults the same way I talk to kids. That's technically code switching, right? Because I'm speaking to them in the way in which they understand it. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes we group the negative in with the positive or true origin of it. But I totally agree that when people are acting like not themselves in front of others is when it becomes problematic, because I'm always myself, but I ain't as comfortable around people I don't know as I am with my homeboys. You know, we gonna talk, we gonna chill, we gonna do our thing because we're comfortable with each other, right? But to me, that's not the same professional Everett, because one, I don't want y'all to know me like that.
So it's interesting, right? Like there is what, you say the thin line between professionalism and code switching, right? Who gets to say what is professional or not, right? And so the same thing shows up. Part to me, code switching is not, so much just about how we speak, but how we show up, how we're going to wear our hair. My first art, and for many interviews, right? I've been natural since undergrad, so a long time ago. But when I went for my RN interviews to be hired in the city, your girl had a slick back bun or a silk press, right? And then I remember once I got the job, it was on the unit. I had my hair was much bigger, to the point patients would be like, the girl with the hair. They would always do that. That's kind of how I would go by, or I didn't go by. That's what people would say. Actually would say, the wild hair, which is disrespectful. But I think that's a perfect example of me being like, oh, I know to fit the larger group's definition of what is professional, I need to have my hair in a slick back bun, or I need to go get my hair pressed, right? And that to me is code switching. Or just think of, at least I think about, like when I'm speaking to both ways. I have two children. My first OB was a white man, and my second one was a Black woman. Completely different office visits. She was always professional, but we were able to speak in a more relaxed tone with one another. Her cultural competence was a little bit, we were just on the same page in that way. And so if she spoke the same way that she spoke to me to other patients, I think they would question her professionalism, when really she's still providing the same care. And when I say when she spoke to me in a way, she never even broke into slang. I don't even mean that. Like, and I think sometimes that's what people will say what code switching is like, oh, I'm just not using slang. But I think it's, using your natural pace of language or tongue or posture, telling a joke, whatever it is, but like still being your authentic self and professional versus, have you ever seen the meme where it's just like you're a polar bear at work and you unzip it? You're like a brown bear or a black bear at home. And it's just taking on these behaviors or language or attire that the larger society identifies as normal or professional. And so we switch into that until we're back in another environment where we know we won't be judged negatively for wearing our hair naturally or whatever the case may be.
And I think with that too, I'll say like my experience with that has been different. Like I worked in the city. So while I was maybe the only Black nurse, there was a lot of support staff, like pretty much every tech, every unit secretary, every EVS person in our hospital was Black. And but the nurses were like overwhelmingly white. I was like the only in like a very, very urban area of Baltimore. And I constantly got, well, if you just talked, well, you talk white. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I grew up in the suburbs, and like I always say like lovingly, like I'm a burbs babe. And it's like people expect you to have what they deem as like a ghetto accent, because in their mind, You know, people from Baltimore and people from Atlanta sound completely different, but to people that want people to code switch, it's like, oh, well, you're around Black people, you can stop with the fake talk. And it's like, but this is how I speak all the time, and it's I've never like known anything different. Or like when people insist, like when I was saying that all of my family was like, I did not grow up around Black nurses because half of my family is white, like Indiana white. My mom and I are the only Black people in their side of the family. And in my dad's side of the family, I'm the only mixed person. Everybody else is like Black, Black only, Black ever. So my mom and I are the only mixed people in his family, and we're only the only mixed people in her family. So it is truly like I'm 50% Black, 50% white. And it's insane how the people that where she grew up, like she gets past, people think she's Hispanic or white like constantly, but she had to fight. Like the NAACP had to fight for her to go to school in the 60s in Indiana, where a lot of people tell her that when she worked with Black people over the years, they were like, you don't know what it's like. And she was like, but I do, because I had to fight to go to school because everybody knew I was mixed. And it's like the interesting thing about code switching is like, it's I don't think it's negative. And I've never thought, even when I was a nurse leader and I had people who grew up in Baltimore that worked at our hospital, they would always try to code switch and sound white at work, or try to sound like they didn't have an accent that just happens when you live in Baltimore. If you've ever seen the iron earned and earned, that is like Baltimore City accent. And everybody who lives there has it. But they would try to speak proper because they thought that that's what people wanted to hear. And I'm like, no, stop code switching. You are not. And if anybody ever calls you ghetto for being who you are, and like what their perception of ghetto is, don't code switch, like be you. So like somewhere in there I just became like authentically myself, and I'm like, no, like I don't really care, I'm not code switching, like you're getting me all the time however I want to be. Like I will be obviously professional, but like how I am on LinkedIn is how I am when you see me working in the hospital, and how my friends see me. Like you're getting the same person, because I don't think it's acceptable to change who I am to please you in a professional environment. So I think like code switching is seen as negative, but like I get why people do it because they don't want those negative attributes, but at the same time, like you only really change people's perception of what code switching means when you are your authentic self in every way. Like my some of my staff, like I mean, they literally spoke like Ebonic slang, like people who are like truly from New Orleans, like they spoke like basically Creole at work, and like the patients loved it, and they were like, but they're you, like you are, there's so much personality in you, and you're not telling me what I want to hear, like, and how I want you to sound. Like you look different, so you obviously are going to sound different. So I think that like the other thing is be authentically you. And if I get it, if you don't have the support, you're not doing that, but if you have the support, be you.
I think that's a perfect way to end this episode, outside of going around and telling the listeners, where can everyone find you all?
You can find me on Instagram at Critical Care Casey. On Facebook, just search my name. And then on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/Critical Care Casey, or you can just look up Casey Green and you'll know it's me because there's an alphabet soup behind my name. You found me. Connect with me. Don't just follow me. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Hit the messaging, because remember, half of networking is reaching out too.
Oh, I love that message. So Ama Mathewos, you can either connect with me on my website, evolveleadsucceed.com, or find me on LinkedIn, which is linkedin.com/Ama Mathewos.
I'm at Travius Keandric. That's Travius K, and then the internet is spelled the rest. On all social media platforms. You can also find my music and everything like that on Apple Music, Spotify, all digital streaming platforms. But yeah, I'm an open book like Casey. Reach out to me, connect, and yeah, let's keep building.
You can find me on Instagram at _Paramurse. Again, that's THE_PARAMURSE. And for those that's wondering, that's not because of male nurse. I took the word paramedic and nurse and merged them together, and we created the Paramurse. I used to have quite the alphabet soup behind my name as well, like Casey, but since I moved into the anesthesia space, I've been letting some of those fall off. But I'm still very proud to have obtained all of those certifications for my own growth and development along my career. I did it for me. It wasn't for nobody else. It was for me. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm at with it. I love helping people. Last quote that I posted recently, I saw a quote that said, "Part of my dream is to see you win." So I don't just dream about my wins, I dream about your wins. And so let's keep winning together.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. All right, listeners, if you like this podcast episode, please like it, comment, share. You can find this on Nurse.org or at all your streaming platforms. So Apple, Spotify. Until next time, everyone be well.
Thanks for joining Nurse Converse, brought to you by Nurse.org. Help us grow by leaving a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Nurse.org supports nurses with career and education tips, life advice, and breaking news. Thank you for all you do and for being you.